Hey guys, welcome to another video. So in this one I wanted to reiterate something that I've talked about in other videos, but it was in a different context. Like in the other videos it was mostly to make more soil. But in this one I just want to put the emphasis on it, and that is if you're mulching your plants, whether it be indoor or outdoor, it will actually make fertilizing them a lot easier because you have something that is on your soil decomposing that'll turn into nutrients. Now, you can maybe get away with mulching only and having that be your fertilizer, but it is kind of difficult because the types of things that you put on your soil generally aren't going to have every single nutrient that your plants are going to need. So it's a little bit difficult to make that the sole thing that you use to fertilize your plants with. However, it'll certainly make it easier to fertilize your plants since they won't need as much, since you already have the decomposition going on. That'll also feed them. But, it is something that I do recommend that you do because it does more than just fertilizing. It also helps to build that beneficial fungus and the beneficial bacteria in your soil. So, it's a good thing to be doing no matter what. Whether it's indoors or outdoors, whether you're growing in ground, whether you're growing in containers. If you're just growing in ground, like especially, of course, outdoor, then you might be able to get away with just mulching. And especially if you apply enough of it, then you might just get away with just doing that. But in an indoor environment, even outdoors, if it's in a container, it's indoors, it's going to definitely be in a container, of course. But in those situations, there's generally just not enough soil there and enough decomposition happening to have that be the only way that you're fertilizing your plants. So those are why you usually end up fertilizing. It's just to kind of supplement and make sure that all the nutrients are really getting the plant is getting all the nutrients that it needs. So, however, with that said, there are some things that, especially in an indoor environment, that you can put on your soil that you can mulch with that'll give them a more rounded nutrients that are decomposing into the soil that you can put on your soil that you can mulch with. So one of those things is coffee grounds. So I have some right here. I mean, we all know what coffee grounds looks like. It's this is actually a little bit wet, becomes quite spongy, holds on to a lot of water. It's pretty good stuff. But the nice thing of it is that it has a lot of nitrogen in it. And since in an indoor environment, the nutrient that is highly sought after in an indoor environment is a lot of the times nitrogen, because most of the plants that you're growing inside are grown for foliage and not so much for flowers, although there are some, but for the most part it's the foliage. So using a little bit of coffee grounds along with your mulch, like putting this on the bottom, kind of sprinkling it in, maybe digging it in a little bit, and then having your mulch, which is more likely going to be a shredded bark. It could be small bark nuggets. Depending on what the size of it is, it's going to break down quicker. So if you're looking for that quicker decomposition, then you would get something that is, finer. Like that's what I've actually talked about in my soil video. I use a very fine shredded bark in my soil. It's already kind of a soil-like consistency, so that really helps with decomposing and turning into soil more quickly than if you were to use a bigger bark nugget. Or you definitely wouldn't want to use wood chips for this, but a bark nugget. So I'll show you some of the things, how I've set up some of the things inside and outside as far as mulching goes, just to kind of give you an idea of how I do it. And especially in an indoor environment, I tend to put some coffee grounds first before I add my mulch on top of it, just to really boost up the nitrogen in the soil. All right, so here we're looking at a couple of the plants that I've got inside. It's the first one here. It's my ficus that I featured in another video. And as you can see, has a bunch of bigger chunks wood chips on here. It's all larger because I really don't need it to decompose that quick. And then what I've done is that there's coffee grounds is underneath here. So I've got the coffee grounds underneath that'll provide some extra nitrogen, and then the mulch on top to kind of keep moisture in, but also have something to decompose and something for beneficial microbiology to cling onto, like the fungus, the bacteria, and all of that stuff. It also gives you a closer look at that coffee grounds. It's pretty moist right now, and you can just, it's just holds together very well. It's like a sponge right now. This stuff really is pretty awesome, and it doesn't cost me anything. I just go to the local baristas and they give me big trash bags full of coffee grounds, you know, so I can get it free, completely free. Sure, most people in most areas you can get this for free. So yeah, I would highly recommend that you try to find some of this. I mostly recommend that you use this for indoors, just so you have that extra nitrogen for your soil. But if you have enough of it, it's also really great to use outside as well. You can even use things like leaves, shredded up preferably, otherwise it might mat. But leaves are a great thing to use as well. It's just that I don't always like to use that inside, just because it has a chance of harboring pests or potentially having pests in it, you know, that like to hide in it and all that stuff. So that's the reason why I don't usually use leaves inside. But it would be a good option if you feel comfortable using it or trying it out. I certainly would. It's just that I have the coffee grounds, and that's why I usually just go for the coffee grounds. Just because I know that that's not going to have any pests in it or anything. I'm fine with it outside, because outside there's you have the wildlife and, the balanced ecosystem to take care of any pests outside. But inside you just don't always have that luxury. So in this case here, it's a bigger bark with this. I put some blueberries in here. They'll decompose and turn into more nutrients. But this is a smaller bark underneath, and then there's coffee grounds in here as well, which at this point are probably gone because I added that this last spring. So, but this is a common theme no matter where you go with my plants. It's always going to have mulch on top of it. Here I have the smaller pine bark nuggets, but functioning the exact same way. You could also use charcoal. I have that naturally in my, or not naturally, but I added to my soil, between 10 and 20%. You could also just use charcoal, but that might get a little costly, just because, charcoal may or may not be easy to come by. And then we got some right there. I brought these guys in way late, okay? So they're looking a little haggard, but the stems are solid and healthy. So I think they will be okay in the end. This is my cat's grass bed, or my cat's planter, if whatever you want to call it. And I just used the grass that she didn't eat to put down as its mulch. So that'll break down and provide really good nutrients for the plants that are in here. A lot of nitrogen, especially, which is what the grass is going to need, because it's all foliar. You want a lot of nitrogen to facilitate that. And then there's a rosemary in it, just because if she eats that, that's not a problem. It's good for her, actually. Also, a little tidbit is this is one of the jalapenos that I pruned. I brought inside to overwinter, and it's actually putting on new growth. And it has flowers on it. You may be able to tell if I can get it to focus on it. I don't think it's going to focus, but it's just right up here. Just a little it'll be flower buds, and they're all over the place. All the new growth has flower buds on it, which is kind of interesting. On this one as well, you can see, actually this you can see a little easier. See the little flower right there? It's not open yet, but little flower. So I might just get some more jalapenos. Anyway, that was off topic. Every single one of my plants has a mulch on it. No matter where you go, it's mulched. It just provides that breakdown, provides the nutrients. You don't have to do anything for it. Just put it on there once and you're pretty much good to go. You can just reapply as you see fit. Use coffee grounds, ideally indoors, just to provide some extra nitrogen. Sometimes you could even add some banana peels, kind of dig it into soil so fruit flies don't become a problem. But sometimes you could even use that, as long as you have something to eat it up. Like you'd want to have worms, like a composting worm in your soil, which I do personally. But if you don't have that, then it will take too long to decompose. But otherwise, you could dig that into the surface so you don't damage any roots, and then the worms will just eat it up. There's lots of things you can do. I highly encourage you to mulch your indoor and outdoor plants. It's so beneficial in so many different ways. I really wanted to put emphasis on it and show you how I do it a little bit as well. I'll show you some outside as well. It's the same principle. I just use more leaves outside than I do anything else, along with some bigger bark mulch, but I'll show you that as well. So here's my apple tree here, and it's the same principle. It's just that I use a lot more leaves, maybe like 5 or 6 inches thick, however many I can fit. I've shown you some of these, but this is a great thing to be doing because it just decomposes, turns into nice rich soil for the growing season. So I really like doing this. I highly recommend that you do it as well. It makes gardening a lot easier. Alright, so that was today's video. Mulching will prevent caking in clay soils. It'll prevent excessive evaporation in sandy soils if it's an outdoor situation. But it'll also hold on to the moisture for just potting soil in an indoor environment. If you're just buying bagged soil, mulching will greatly increase your water holding capacity. It'll help regulate the soil moisture in the soil. It's just all around so much better to just mulch your soil. It has many, many benefits. So I hope that you do the same. I hope that you learn something, and we will see you in the next one. Tot de volgende keer.